Episode of the podcast. It's really great to have you back. And if you're new here, welcome. This week, we're going to be talking about the massive flood that is permeating the astrological skies right now. This week alone, we've had Neptune come back into Pisces. We've had the sun move into Scorpio, adding even more water to what we've had before. If you would like a deeper dive into the element of water, in my previous podcast episode, I sort of explored some of those elements and diving a little bit deeper into the element of water and the temperament that is linked to the element of water. But now what we're looking at really this week is, and not only this week, it's the rest of October and into November. And in reality, it's through until January and February, which is how long Neptune and Saturn are going to be back in Pisces. So essentially, we're wrapping up some very big cycles. But in order to do that, we really need to have that stillness. We need to have that reflection. We need to really kind of bathe in this to sort of really recalibrate and figure our way forward into 2026. So before I start sharing with you some of the ideas I wanted to share with you this week, I'd love to remind you that November 29, I will be hosting a 1 day in-person workshop all about the astrology of 2026 in Brisbane. So if you are in Brisbane or you can get to Brisbane, I've got quite a few people who've booked tickets already who are flying in from interstate, which is fantastic. Anyway, if you can get here, it will be happening November 29. There'll be a link below in the description box where you can that'll connect you to my website where you'll find out more information and you can register for that. Now, December 10, we are beginning year one astrology. So, beginner's astrology right from the beginning through to by the end of the course, which is about 10 months long. You will be proficient in reading charts. So, I've opened enrollment for year one, and this will take you from the very beginning through all of the basics through to what I like to call the advanced basics of chart reading. So if you think, yeah, but I kind of know aspects and houses and signs, I feel like I've got a good grasp of that. And you probably do, but sometimes we don't know how much we don't know until we realize we don't know it. The idea of the program is just not to teach you stuff, it's also to teach you how to think like an astrologer, what to look for, what's important, what's not, and of course, the mentorship, the guidance, and the insight of over 20 years of me doing this now. So if you would like to join, I would be thrilled to have you. There's a link in the description box below that will take you directly to the course app where all the material is. You'll find out more about the program. There's, payment plans, there's pay in full options, and all the details you need. If you've got questions, do feel free to drop them in the comments below, or you can email me via my website. So all of that will be there. So I'd love to have you. I'm excited to take on another bunch of students and take you through starting this year, but in 2026. The 2026 group, I'm calling you. Anyway, let's talk about this, the moment that we're in astrology. So Neptune moved back into Pisces this week, and that is wrapping. So it's going to be there for 3 months, and it's wrapping up a cycle that essentially began in 2011, but fully began in 2012. And it's within 3 degrees of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn moved back into Pisces in September, and Saturn first moved into Pisces in March of 2023. So combined, Saturn and Neptune are providing the third leg of this grand water trine that's in place. So we've got Jupiter in Cancer, we've got Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, and of course, we've got all the sort of annual movements of the Sun, Mercury, Venus to come in Scorpio, and then, of course, Mars is currently in Scorpio. And we'll have a Mercury retrograde partially through Scorpio coming next month. So there's a lot of water. So this is going to bring, water brings heightened emotions, heightened sensitivity, a heightened feeling, an awareness, that idea of being able to feel something but not necessarily be able to explain or articulate it. When we have an overabundance of water, this is where things can feel maybe reactive and overly emotional, potentially kind of sludgy as well, that overwhelm that comes through. And when we're overwhelmed, it can be very hard to discern, to make decisions, to move forward because we're kind of that proverbial skippy in the headlights, or if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it might be a deer in the headlights for you. It was funny. I was having a chat with someone on Instagram last night, and he said to me something about, collective grief and things of that nature. And I think we will probably start to see that energy flow through, especially when you think about the last 5 years. I mean, there's just been so much WTF in the last 5 years that I think a lot of people have not um, really recovered from that, even if that's possible. And, how do we recalibrate when we're so far from 2019 now, technologically wise, spiritually wise, uh, socioeconomic wise, politically, in every way, shape, or form, life feels so different now than what it did just 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So there is this sense of having to recalibrate and re-navigate what that like how do we position ourselves in this timeline, in this field, and in this framework. When there's a lot of water in the sky, I often think about the idea of, those spirit levels that builders use when they're trying to sense is a wall straight or plank of wood straight or something like that. And there's that little bubble and they're trying to level it up. Right now, I feel that the energy is a bit like that. We're trying to recalibrate our spirit levels, literally, perhaps, whether it is actually the instrument or from a spiritual perspective. Trying to not get overwhelmed with disillusionment, not get overwhelmed by energetically being bombarded by so much out there, whether it's political landscapes, AI, the world order overlords. Maybe, all of those things are a thing, but then we kind of can add some of the stuff that's happening in our personal lives as well. It's safe to say it's a lot. I just, it really is. And so that can also provide a deep fatigue, this deep feeling of, you know, I live in a sort of a subtropic climate. And now that the spring, we're in Scorpio season now. So we're really sort of getting that brunt. We had a dry start to the spring, which is rare, but now the humidity is kicked in. And so that's that sort of wall of that watery moisture. While it's kind of life affirming, I like it, but then there's also that, you wake up in the morning and you're already hit with the heat. And so, if you live in a particularly humid climate, you know that feeling. And it can almost be stifling. Sometimes it can be hard to breathe. Sometimes that too much water can feel difficult to discern. It can be feel difficult to feel comfortable. It can feel difficult to even just have a clear thinking because you can often feel hungover when there's a lot of water. So now that Neptune's back into Pisces, there is this energy of, oh, this old chestnut again. Things are increasingly getting weird. I'll just have a look on my Instagram, for example, and I'm thinking, when did I follow this person? And I'm not following that person. They're just in my feed. I get onto YouTube and the algorithms, like, where did that video come from? I feel like there's just a lot of weirdness. AI everything. And, if you're not in AI or if you're not utilizing AI, if you're not on board with AI, somehow you're not part of the future. Like there's just this level of weirdness. And how do you not that it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but how do you navigate that? How much do you want to be in that? Um, it's a lot. So when so now we have Neptune and Saturn back into Pisces. It is a chance to just kind of come back. We've been touched by the fires of Aries. Now we're coming back. Saturn's now at what, 26 Pisces. So there's an opportunity here to get a little bit grounded. Uh, when Saturn first moved into Pisces back in March of 2023 and joined Neptune, I remember it feeling the energy was kind of being discombobulated on the ocean, but you've got a chunk of wood to cling onto. So as long as you're clinging onto that piece of wood, you can make it back to sort of safety or back to the shoreline. And so this is an opportunity now with Saturn, that chunk of wood, with Neptune. It's very oceanic. It's very overwhelming. It's very potent and powerful. It's also very mystical and magical. It's also the planet of delusions and illusions. And now we get this opportunity to, are we clinging on to the right things? Are we clinging with that piece of wood, that block of Saturn? Are we clinging to something that we can build something from? Or are we just being hoodwinked and led down a garden path? There's this idea that something might seem easy, something might seem like the solution to all of the problems because we're tired, because we're fatigued. But once you get inside that, the digital ID I'm referring to, then that trap, right? That trap is set, and we may never get out of that. So it is this reminder when we're fatigued, when we're overloaded, when we are just overwhelmed. The first solution can seem like the easy solution. But when we get to go back over something, which we are now, this is the wind up of a big Pisces cycle. We get that opportunity to readjust the boundaries, the structures, the limitations, and go right within ourselves and figure out what's right for me, what's not right for me, and how do I readjust or re-navigate um, the structures, the walls, the boundaries, the limitations, the discipline, and the work I want to do, whatever that looks like for you. So, because Saturn and Neptune have both been touched by fire now, there's almost this, have we been burned in that Aries part of the picture? So now water can help us soothe, it can help us heal, and it can help us refresh a little bit. So we come back into Pisces with an awareness that we may not have had. For example, 2023 and 2024, when Saturn was first in Pisces. So there is a qualitative difference to this second and or maybe it's not quite the second, but this last leg of Saturn in Pisces has a qualitative difference to it because we've all already put our hands on the stove, proverbially speaking. So what do we do with this right now, from a practical perspective? There's many things that we can do to navigate this level of water, and that's to give yourself some space. One thing that I am hoping that once Uranus finally gets into Taurus, at least time will feel like it's moving a little bit slower. Everyone has said to me how 2025 has felt very fast. The time has moved very fast. The year has really slipped by. And so when we have that chance to slow down somewhat, to catch our breath, we give ourselves space to actually feel rather than fire spotting or rather than sort of reacting to everything in the environment. We give ourselves that chance to feel into things and make more sort of these right for you choices that are that feel really embodied, that feel really true and real, even if you can't articulate them, even if they don't make much sense. When water is functioning well, I often feel it's a little bit like the idea of I'll die if I don't do it. It's just this gushing of energy, this pushing of energy, and there's a flow to it that's so nourishing, so life affirming, and so right. I think water and fire are the two elements that I feel can really bring up that energy really, really well. So if there's something that you think I've got a last shot at this, or maybe it's the last shot to put an end to something, to really feel into that. And, maybe you need to meditate on it. Maybe you need to pray on it. Maybe you need to be in nature and just, block out the noise and really connect to the body. And that's something that's really important when there's a lot of water in the sky. Of course, because our bodies are made up of so much water. Water also brings the capacity for compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. So much water in the sky also reminds me of the biblical story of Noah and the flood, which is also pertinent for this moment through the Bible cycle. So floods bring chaos, they bring destruction, they bring a lot of turmoil with them. But the story of Noah reminds us to remain calm in the storm, that when life throws us curveballs, when life throws us surprises, when life throws us situations that are emotional, are upsetting, or devastating, the best place to be in a storm is in the eye of it. And it reminds us to be calm. And the name itself, Noah, which I know is quite a common and a popular name now, does mean rest and serenity, which is another reminder that we need to sort of stay calm in the chaos and staying anchored. Again, Saturn and that block of wood. So floods, storms, big bodies of water, they do bring a lot of cleansing and they bring renewal. And then after that, they bring us to that higher and that more elevated place. So as Saturn and Neptune are now reactivating together a certain area of your birth chart, it's to take the image that I was talking about over 2 years ago about the idea of clinging to that block of wood in the ocean. This is the invitation to build that proverbial ark. Find your lifeboat, find your vessel or container on the ocean that's going to lead you to where you want to go. And the water will allow you to feel that. It will allow you to tap in and gauge what feels good and what doesn't feel good. So, where might you build that ark? Well, of course, it will be wherever Pisces is for your in your birth chart. So for some of us, it might be your career. For others, it might be your groups, your friendships, your communities. Maybe that is the arc of safety and security and stability for you. For other people, it's family, their home life, their domestic life. And then for others, it might be, I just need to be alone for 3 months and do the bare minimum. So do look to where Pisces is for you. And that's going to give you an idea of where you can build that arc, where you can build structures, where you can build some discipline that's based on things that feel right for you and based on things that um, really kind of thrust you forward in a way that just feels good, feels right, and that kind of moves you in that watery Pisces way. And when I say what moves you, it's almost that the energy of Pisces, even though it can be a little bit confusing and overwhelming sometimes, it can also, being ruled by Jupiter, it is the high tide raises all boats. It is the energy of, sometimes when you just react, not react necessarily although it can happen, but it can also be that response that you don't even think about yourself with. It's selfless, it is sacrificial, it's helping somebody, the Good Samaritan, the martyr in some instances. And that can also be proverbially speaking. But sometimes where we just give something of ourselves so freely and so without even thinking. And that could be putting yourself in the line of danger to help somebody. It could be just what you're prepared to sacrifice or give up for the love of your child. It could be what you're prepared to give up or sacrifice for family or for your relationship. Again, look to your Pisces parts, and that's going to show you where there's going to be some kind of beautiful sacrifice that you can really move towards in the next few months. So again, it's the idea that life sometimes brings storms, it sometimes brings floods, but when we can find our center, when we can find our why, when we can find our purpose, again, ruled by Jupiter, we will find our center, we'll find our calm in the eye of the storm, and we can build those structures, the disciplines, the boundaries, the protection mechanisms, whatever it may be, to help ride the storm. So we might also recognize with Saturn and Pisces, now they're back together, Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, now they're back together, that a dream that kind of felt like it got washed away or maybe even burned away might be back on the table. An opportunity might return, something worth exploring, something worth being disciplined about, something worth the hard work, the sacrifice, the effort, the toil, the tears, the blood, sweat, and tears. They're all watery substances. So there might be that opportunity to have a one last, I'm going to say red hot go, even though that's not very Piscean, but a really sort of a good go at something that maybe you were a little bit blasé about, maybe a little bit easy does it. Mutables can be very ambivalent. And so maybe you have been a little bit ambivalent in an area of your life, and now Saturn and Neptune have come back to it, and you're like, hang on a minute, I want to do what it takes to recommit and realize a Neptunian dream. In some instances, there may also be the recognition that despite best efforts, you might just have to let something go. Remember, Noah could only take two of everything on the ark. He couldn't take everything. So there might have to be some kind of sacrifice and recognition that either you have to let something go or something may not look exactly how you expected it to. There may not necessarily be total loss and destruction, but there may be an outcome that you didn't even imagine for yourself. I think when we're talking about Neptune, we have to leave a little bit of room for that magic. Using the analogy of the ocean, right? You might have been, if you've watched those Viking shows, which you all know that I have, um, they might be aiming for one faraway land on a boat, but they end up somewhere else and you make a life for themselves there. So the idea here is if you're, on the ark, on the ocean, heading for one land, you might end up in another. And this idea that sometimes, the idea of sort of, let go and let God, we never really know how our dreams, how our goals, how our desires will manifest. We just put in all the effort. We give it 110% effort. We flood the system with our energy, and then the results are not up to us. Or at least how the results will show up. And of course, the timing can also be another thing. So again, when we're talking about Pisces, when we're talking about Neptune, we're talking about surrender. And oftentimes when people hear that word, what kind of calibrates in their mind is this idea of, oh, I'll just give up, I'll just surrender, whatever. And that's not really quite it. It's not about giving up, it's about giving in, letting go of controlling the outcome, letting go of the holding on and the retention. Water needs to do its own thing. It's going to flow. Stagnant water is usually not a good thing. So when you can go with where the tide takes you, you may end up somewhere that you wouldn't have dreamed. I mean, if you think about situations in your life where you might have went on a certain path or moved in a certain direction, thinking you were going to get one outcome, but you ended up with something else and it was way better for you. So now that Neptune is back in Pisces with Saturn, and we've got this overflow of abundance. Your invitation now is to find that block of wood, build that arc, and start steering your life in the direction you want it to go, wherever Pisces is for you. So I hope that's given you something a little bit practical, a little bit inspirational to think about how we can actually use this energy rather than just flowing along with it and hoping for the best. So if you like this, please do subscribe to whether you're watching on YouTube or a podcast. I really would appreciate that. Leave a comment. Where is Pisces for you? And if you're thinking about joining us for the Contemporary Astrology Program starting December 10, the link will be in the description box below, and I'd love to have you join us. So until next time, enjoy all this water.